You said it was pretend. My voice cracked, barely a whisper over the echo of wedding bells in the air. Claire didn't look at me. She just kept smiling. At him. At Darren. My best friend. I stood at the back of the outdoor venue, gripping the edge of a white linen table, watching her walk down the aisle, in the same dress she once showed me while giggling in our bedroom, saying, "If I ever get married again, it won't be for real." But this was real. The chairs were filled. Her father was crying. Darren stood under the floral arch, tears in his eyes, mouthing, "I love you." I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. This wasn't part of the plan. This wasn't part of our plan. We were supposed to fake it. The divorce, the breakup, the separation. She said it would help Darren keep custody of his daughter during a nasty court battle with his ex. They needed to appear as a stable, married couple on paper. Just until the hearing, she promised. No one needs to know. We'll remarry right after. It's just a technicality. So why was I standing here now, uninvited, watching her about to kiss him for real? I could barely breathe. I wasn't supposed to be here, but something told me to come. Call it gut instinct. Call it heartbreak's last warning. But now that I was here, every second felt like a slow-motion nightmare. And then it happened. The priest said, "You may kiss the bride." And she did. She kissed him. Full, software tender. Her hands cupped his jaw the way she used to cup mine. And the crowd cheered. People stood. They clapped. They threw flower petals. No one knew that I was the husband she left behind. No one knew that the divorce was supposed to be a lie. But the kiss, that was real. And in that moment, I realized the woman I loved didn't just betray me, she erased me. I met Claire on a Tuesday. That's always mattered to me because Tuesdays are forgettable. But she wasn't. She had this way of walking into a room like it already belonged to her, but still made you feel like the most important person in it. We met at a charity event. She was organizing it. I was just a plus one. My tie was crooked, and I remember her reaching up and fixing it before I'd even said my name. "Darren's friend, right?" she asked, smiling. "The one who doesn't know how to dress himself?" That was Claire. Bold, disarming, honest in a way that never felt cruel. We danced for the first time under string lights and paper lanterns. I spilled wine on her shoes. She laughed and said, "Now you owe me dinner." 3 years later, we were married. She used to call our apartment a shoebox, but said it felt like a palace because I lived there. Every night, we'd fall asleep with her head on my chest, her fingers tracing circles near my ribs. We had plans, big ones. Start our own event company, buy a fixer-upper, travel to Iceland for the Northern Lights. Maybe a kid, just one. We were still figuring it out. She wasn't just my wife. She was my person, the one I told everything to. Fears, dreams, the dumb stuff no one else would care about. And she never judged me. Not once. When my mom got sick, Claire was the one holding my hand in the hospital. She made it a point to cook for my dad every Sunday after the funeral, even when I didn't have the strength to show up myself. And Darren? He was my best friend since grade school. We'd built tree houses, shared lockers, pulled each other through breakups and broken bones. When he married Lacey, I was his best man. When she left him and threatened to take their daughter, I was the first person he called. He was family. So when he broke down one night on my couch, sobbing about losing custody because of a bad court report, Claire and I didn't even hesitate. "We'll figure something out," I told him. Claire looked at me, then at Darren. "What if we make it look like I'm single? I mean, technically, if Daniel and I divorced, and I married Darren, it would strengthen his case, right?" I remember blinking at her. "Wait, like, for real?" "No," she said, grabbing my hand. "Just on paper. We'd keep it quiet. Temporary. Once the court stuff is done, we undo everything. It's a legal workaround. Nothing more." Darren looked horrified. "I couldn't ask you to do that." "You didn't," she said softly. "We offered." I won't lie, I felt uneasy. But Claire was always the planner, the one who thought 5 moves ahead. She assured me she'd still live with me, that we'd make it work, that it would all be over in a few months. "It's just a formality," she whispered the night we signed the papers. "We're still us." And for a while we were. She'd sleep in our bed, leave me voice notes during the day, kiss my forehead every morning. But slowly she started staying over at Darren's more often. "It's for appearances," she said. The calls got shorter. The kisses stopped coming. I tried to convince myself this was still part of the plan, that she was just playing a role. But something had shifted. I could feel it in the silence, in the way her texts came with periods instead of hearts. The woman I loved, the one I trusted with everything, was slipping out of my hands, one believable lie at a time, and I had no idea how close I was to losing her forever. At first it was little things, so small they felt ridiculous to question. Claire would forget to call me before bed, which she never used to do. Then came the excuses. "I was exhausted, babe. Court prep with Darren is intense. I fell asleep putting Mila to bed. You know how she gets." I told myself she was just being selfless. She was helping my best friend keep his daughter. We were doing something good, noble even. So why did I feel like I was the one being erased? It wasn't just the missed calls, it was her phone. How she suddenly started keeping it face down. Her texts were shorter, drier, full of periods and lowercase letters instead of her usual emojis and exclamation points. One night I called while she was at Darren's. It rang, then again, and again. Finally she answered. Her voice was low, like she'd just woken up. "Hey, can I call you later? Mila had a nightmare. Darren's asleep on the couch. It's just not a good time." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But that night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her voice in my head. Something about it felt off. Tired, yes, but also cold. Detached. Like she was no longer reaching for me emotionally. A week later, I stopped by Darren's unannounced. I had picked up some documents he needed for the custody hearing and thought I'd drop them off and surprise Claire. Mila opened the door. Claire was in the kitchen, barefoot, wearing his hoodie. Darren was upstairs, she said. My heart didn't break instantly. It cracked. Hairline fractures across the trust I'd built for years. Claire hugged me, but it felt performative. Her arms were there, but she wasn't. Her eyes flicked nervously toward the stairs. "Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" she asked, too fast. "No reason," I lied. "Just missed you." We made small talk. She offered me coffee, but her hands trembled as she poured. I saw 2 mugs already on the counter, both used, 2 bowls in the sink. I noticed her toothbrush in the holder next to Darren's. No sign of mine. That night, I asked her outright, "Claire, is there something you're not telling me?" She stiffened. "What do you mean? Are you still with me? Or is this, whatever we're doing, just pretend for me now?" She looked at me for a long time, her jaw tight. "Don't do this, Daniel," she said quietly. "You agreed to this. This is for Darren, for Mila. Don't make it something it's not." But it already was. And the worst part? She didn't deny it. She didn't reassure me. Then came the email. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. Her laptop was open on the counter while she showered at our apartment. A notification pinged from a shared folder. Mila custody timeline revised. I clicked. There among the documents was a scanned copy of a new lease agreement. Claire and Darren's names. Co-signers. Move-in date, next month. I stared at the screen until the words stopped making sense. My ears buzzed. My stomach twisted. When she came out of the bathroom, towel wrapped around her, I didn't even look up. "You're moving in with him?" She froze. "It's for the court's impression," she said, voice shaking. "It'll look more legitimate." More legitimate than our marriage? Than the last 7 years of our life? "You said you trusted me." "I did." And then like a switch flipped, she got angry, defensive. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, Daniel. This isn't about you." I stood up slowly, heart pounding. "Then who is it about, Claire? Because it sure as hell feels like it's not about Mila anymore." She said nothing, just walked to the bedroom and closed the door. That night I drove, nowhere in particular. I ended up at my parents' old house, sat outside for an hour, cried like a child. A few days later, the final straw came. I was on Darren's street, dropping off a check he needed to reimburse Claire for legal fees. I parked across the road. As I approached the house, I saw through the window. Claire, laughing, sitting on his lap. His hand was on her thigh. They weren't pretending anymore. I didn't knock. I didn't confront. I just backed away. But I needed confirmation. I needed to know I wasn't losing my mind. So I did something I never thought I would. I installed a recovery app on the old iPad we used to sync for our budget tracker. Claire had forgotten it was still connected to her messages. It was all there. Weeks of texts between her and Darren. Not just logistics, not just legal updates, but intimacy. I wish I could fall asleep next to you every night without guilt. He still thinks this is temporary. I can't keep lying. When we're finally through with this, it'll just be us. I promise. And worst of all, a picture. Them, in bed, smiling, her head on his chest, his fingers tangled in her hair. Caption, real this time. That was when the last piece of me snapped. She hadn't just betrayed me, she used me. She sold me the fantasy of sacrifice for a friend while building a new life behind my back. A fake divorce? Number. It was real, and I was the only one still pretending. The night I saw them together, something inside me shattered. But it didn't break me completely. I remember sitting alone in my dark apartment, the silence screaming louder than any confrontation could have. That's when I realized, if Claire and Darren wanted to play their game, I would play too, but on my terms. I didn't want to be the angry ex screaming in the streets or making public scenes. That wouldn't fix the betrayal. No, what I needed was control, the kind that comes from patience, strategy, and cold, calculated moves. Revenge wasn't about hurting them. It was about reclaiming me. The first step was quiet observation. I didn't tell a soul. I held all my cards close, pretending to be the broken husband while I watched them weave their lies. I let Claire's texts and calls pile up unread. I stopped answering her messages. The silence unsettled her, and that was good. Next, I gathered proof. Everything. Screenshots, voice memos, pictures, all stored safely, backed up twice. I reached out to a lawyer friend, someone I trusted with my life. We went over custody laws, divorce terms, and the limits of legal manipulation. Claire thought she could fool the courts with fake leases and staged appearances, but she didn't count on me being smarter. The turning point came when Darren's company announced an unexpected audit for financial irregularities. I'd learned from a mutual acquaintance that he'd been funneling money through side accounts to cover legal fees and personal expenses. That was the angle I needed. I contacted the company's compliance officer anonymously, forwarding the evidence I had of suspicious transactions. It wasn't just about Darren's professional ruin. It was about showing Claire that her selfish games had consequences beyond our marriage. Meanwhile, I staged my own public comeback. I arranged meetings with friends, family, and colleagues, showing the real me, calm, composed, and in control. No tears, no bitterness, just quiet strength. When Claire tried to contact me, I was distant but polite. I refused to be baited. Every time she pushed, I held my ground. And then, the best moment. The day Claire and Darren thought they'd finalize their plans, the day they'd feel victorious, I called a press conference. But it wasn't about tabloids or gossip. It was for the custody hearing. I presented my lawyer's findings and my own compiled evidence, screenshots of Claire's double life, the forged documents, the financial fraud involving Darren, and most damning of all, emails where Claire admitted to lying about her feelings, not just to me but to the court. I watched as their faces drained of color. Claire's mask cracked, her confidence faltered. Darren tried to speak, but no one listened. That day, I didn't just win back custody of Mila. I took back my dignity and my power. No screaming matches or petty insults, just undeniable truth and justice served cold. After the courtroom victory, when the dust finally settled, I sat alone in the quiet of my new apartment. It was smaller than the home Claire and I once shared, but it was mine, a space filled with peace, not betrayal. I looked around at the bare walls and thought about how much had changed. I wasn't the broken woman who had begged for answers or shattered under the weight of deceit. I was stronger now, wiser, free. Losing Claire felt like losing a part of myself, but in reality, it was the beginning of rediscovering who I truly was. I learned that love without trust isn't love. It's a cage, and cages only trap us if we let them. Mila was the light guiding me through the darkest nights. Every smile, every hug reminded me why I fought. Not for revenge, but for the future I wanted to build. A future where honesty, respect, and real love were non-negotiable. I reached out to old friends I'd pushed away during the years of turmoil. Slowly, I rebuilt those bridges. I even started volunteering at a community center, helping women caught in toxic relationships find their way out. It was healing to turn my pain into purpose. Claire faded from my daily life like a bad dream I refused to revisit. No more whispered lies, no more secrets. I refused to give her the satisfaction of my bitterness. Instead, I poured my energy into myself, into Mila, and into the quiet joy of simple, honest moments. One evening, as I watched Mila chase fireflies in the backyard, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the fleeting kind, but the kind that roots itself deep and grows stronger with every sunrise. I'm still healing, but I'm no longer broken. I am the author of my own story now. And as for Claire and Darren, they're still trying to pick up the pieces of the life they thought they could build on lies. But I don't carry their shadows anymore, because I've found my light, and it's brighter than ever. They tried to erase me, but I wrote myself back into the story, stronger, free, and unbreakable.